Alright guys, we're going to do some factoring today where our first coefficient is not going to be 1. So that's all we worked with for this whole week. This is going to be a lot more difficult. I just want you to practice it, maybe try it a couple times and see if you can get the hang of it. I do know that it's going to be much more difficult than before. There's a lot more steps to this process. So we are factoring quadratics when a does not equal 1. So remember, a is that very first coefficient in our expression here. So we're just going to go ahead and start with an example. So an example might be something like 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. All right, so our a term is this very first one of, now it's 2. Now we don't want to have a coefficient of anything but 1 there. So the very first thing that we're going to do, we're going to say no numbers up front. And the way we're going to get rid of this is we're actually going to take that number and we're going to multiply it by the last number. And that's how we're going to move it. All right, so we're going to take this 2 and we're going to bring it over here. We're going to multiply it by that 3. All right, so we're moving it all the way over here and we're going to be multiplying. Now, eventually at the end, you can't just multiply. We're going to have to end up dividing it back out. So that's going to be our very last step, is to divide this whole thing by 2 again. All right, but to rewrite this, now we're going to end up with x squared plus 7x, so nothing changes in the middle, and now we have plus 6. All right, so now we can factor. All right, and so when we factor, remember we're doing the box method. And we are going to be taking our first term, putting it in the first box, and taking our last term here and putting it in our last box. And we're going to be talking about finding those factors. So we have x squared and positive 6. In order for us to figure out what goes in these two boxes, we need to make sure it adds up to 7. So we're going to come over here and list the factors. So our factors are 1 times 6. And since this is all positive, we're just dealing with positives. And 2 times 3. Now we want to know the sum. And so this sum would be 7 and this sum would be 6. So we do want a sum of 7 here. So we're going to choose this one, which means we're going to choose these two factors. All right, so we're going to end up with x times x gives us x squared, and 1 times 6 gives us 7. And we'll fill in our box and just make sure that the sum of these two does give us 7x, and it does. So I'll just go ahead and highlight those to represent that goes with the 7x there. All right, so now we're writing out kind of what we would assume to be our answer, which would be x plus 1 times x plus 6. But if you multiply this out, we're not going to end up with what we started with. All right, so there, like I said, there's one last step, and it's going to be to divide. So because we multiplied by 2 in the beginning, now we're going to divide each factor by that original a value. So by that original first coefficient up here, this is your a value right there. All right, so our original a value was 2. So I'm just going to highlight this, make sure we know that that's our a value there. And what we're going to do is we're going to say x plus, and we're going to take this 1 and just put it over 2 like a fraction. And then we're going to do the same thing for this one, x plus, and then just do 6 over 2 like a fraction. All right, so we're almost done. There's one more step. You cannot have fractions. All right, so the whole point of us putting fractions in there is to kind of get an idea of what the numbers are really going to look like. So no fractions. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to first simplify if you can. All right, so I can simplify this one right here. 6 divided by 2 is going to give me 3, right? So this one ends up being x plus 3. That's great. That's our final answer here. Let me highlight these 2's so we know where that 2 came from. All right, but we can't simplify 1/2. If this was like 2/4, we could simplify that down to 1/2. But again, we're not allowed to have fractions. So if you can't simplify, or if you already have simplified and you still have a fraction, you need to move the denominator back to the front. And we're really just moving it back to the coefficient of x there. So this one, this whole 2 right here is going to come back up front, and it's going to say 2x plus, and then we keep that 1. 2x plus 1, just like that. All right, and that is our final answer here. Yeah, final answer. All right, so we're going to do another one. This one's going to have some negatives in it, so we're going to do 6u squared and it's going to be minus 11u plus 4. So we're going to do the same type of thing here. So this will be our second example. And remember, what we want to do is if we have a number that is in that front spot, we do want to go ahead and multiply that all the way over here. All right, so we're going to multiply it to move it out of the way. So no numbers up front. We're going to use multiplication to move it. And I'm kind of shorthanding down here because you can always look back up and see the actual directions in this first example. So no numbers up front, we're going to use multiplication to start to simplify. So we have u squared minus 11u, that stays the same, and then we have plus 24. All right, so now we're going to factor. And we're going to do our box. We're going to have u squared and 24, and I will highlight those for you. So that's our first term in the first box, and our last term in the last box. All right, and then what we want to do next is we want to come up with this negative 11 piece right here. All right, and that's going to be the combination of these two right here. So we're going to do some factors. And then we're also going to talk about the sums. All right, and so we have a positive 24 but a negative 11. That tells me that I either have to have 2 positives multiplied together to get a positive or 2 negatives. Well, the only way we can get a sum of negative 11 is if both of these numbers are negative. So we're going to end up doing 1 times 24, and we're going to call them both negative. That's going to give us a sum of negative 25. We're going to do negative 2 times negative 12. That would give us a sum of negative 14. Negative 3 times negative 8, which is going to give us a sum of negative 11. So that's the one that we want to use. And we're going to fill in what we need to up here. So we have u and negative 3, and u and negative 8 here. So we'll fill in the rest of our box. And that is going to give us the negative 11u there. Toby! All right, so the next step is to write out these factors. So we have u minus 3 and u minus 8, but again, we're not quite done yet. So remember how we multiplied by 6 in the beginning? Now we're going to have to divide by 6. So divide factors by the A. And when I say the A, that's our original A value, okay, which was 6. That's our A value. And so we're going to rewrite these, but divide by 6 here. So we're going to have u minus 3 over 6 and u minus 8 over 6. Okay, no fractions. So we're going to simplify first. We're going to end up with u minus 1/2 and u minus 8/6. We're going to divide both of these by 2, and we're going to get 4 over 3. So 4 over 3. All right, so we still have fractions, so the very last thing is to take these bottom two numbers right here and move them to the front. So move denominators to the front. All right, so our final answer here, running a little bit out of room here, we should have our 2 come to the front, and we're going to end up with 2u minus 1. Take our 3 and move it up to the front, and we're going to get 3u minus 4. And that's going to be our final answer for this very last one. All right, and I am going to come back. I forgot to highlight our A value is 6, so I will highlight that down here just so you can see where that 6 came from. All right, I'm going to give you an IXL assignment. I really just want you to get to about 50 on this IXL assignment. Just try it out, see what you can do. Don't get frustrated if you're not understanding. We'll work on this a little bit next week as well.